Now, a 12-year-old girl called Genesis Butler has challenged the Pope to go vegan for Lent. And if he does, he will get $1 million for the charity of his choice. She's written an open letter that's been published in The Guardian today and in other newspapers across the globe. We'll hear more about her letter in just a moment, but let's have a listen to her.
We're asking for Pope Francis' help to protect our planet by drawing attention to the devastating impact of animal agriculture. If he agrees to go plant-based, we'll give $1 million to the charity of his choice.
Well, that was Genesis Butler and her appeal to the Pope. With me now, Mathew Glover, who is behind this challenge, and Jane Lamb, the co-founder of Veganuary. Welcome to you both. This is interesting. Why do you want to get the Pope involved in the vegan movement?
Well, Pope Francis, we know, cares about climate change. We know he cares about compassion for animals. He wrote his encyclical in 2015, Laudato Si', where he talked about the tyrannical abuse of animals. So we know that this is something that's very close to his heart. But what he may not know is that animal agriculture is a leading cause of climate change, a leading cause of biodiversity and species extinction. So we're asking him to take leadership on this subject and consider trying vegan for Lent, which is a period of time which Christians and Catholics are used to going abstaining from certain products.
Jane, it's interesting because with the Pope comes 1.2 billion Catholics across the globe, and perhaps more. What would be the environmental impacts of converting all of those people to a plant-based diet?
It would be huge. I mean, we know that when the Pope does something, people listen. The statistics that we're using in the letters, so it's currently 83% of the world's land use goes to animal agriculture, yet it produces just 18% of our calories. Now, the statistics about the flight, and it's just escaped me, but Mathew might have this one.
Yeah, so basically the environmental impact during Lent, if everybody in the world was to go vegan for Lent, then it's
40 days.
Yeah,
Totally.
well, yeah, 40 days. Then it's the equivalent of Germany not emitting any CO2 for a whole year, so it would be massive.
So you think the effects of 1.2 billion people going to a plant-based diet would be positive, and that's obviously because of the controversy that surrounds intensive meat and dairy farming. But by getting 1.2 billion people onto a plant-based diet, there's intensive farming that comes with producing enough crops for people to eat as well. And we're also talking about, you know, a lot of pesticides and erosion of soil and degrading of the quality of soil. So it has negative impacts as well if 1.2 billion people plus switch to a plant-based diet.
Yeah, no, the reality is that around about, as Jane said, it's like an 80-20 rule. So the majority of land is used either for grazing animals or for growing products, growing food to feed to animals. So we would only need about 25% of the land that we currently use if everybody was on a plant-based diet. So we could give land back to nature. So we could reforest. Now, if you could then rewild and reforest these all over the world, then those trees would take carbon out of the atmosphere. So people's personal greenhouse gas emissions would reduce by around about 30 to 50% by being plant-based. So it's a real solution for climate change.
Isn't it more about balance, though, Jane? Because, you know, whatever way, converting people, you know, billions of people to a plant-based diet, you are going to have to come up with more crops. And the way of the world is you have to use intensive farming. You can't be organic and dig by hand. All farming processes involve machinery and emissions, pesticides and all of that. So you're sort of swapping like for like. Would it not be better to encourage people to go 50-50 and perhaps cut back in one area and take up more in another?
The reality is that actually animals are eating these crops, so they're not being fed directly to humans. So if we were not feeding those crops to to animals, we would have an extra 1 billion tons of food to feed people. It's a really inefficient way of eating. So instead of going to the source, we're actually filtering it through an animal. It's like going to your fridge, taking out 10 plates of food and throwing 9 away. Effectively, that is what we're doing when we're funneling our calories through an animal.
Yeah. It's interesting, the vegan movement is huge at the moment. Of course, we've just come out of Veganuary, where a lot of people have tried it, and, you know, I'm sure a few people are going to carry on being vegan as a result of trying it. But the vegan movement can get quite a bad name when it comes to some protesters. We've seen images here on Sky News of vegan protesters going into restaurants and supermarkets with distressing images and harassing customers to come round to their way of thinking. Does this damage the cause for you, Mathew?
Yeah, I mean, we understand how a lot of the vegan activists, how they feel. We don't necessarily condone those actions. And that's why with this campaign, it's very much a mainstream campaign. We're directing it to His Holiness, Pope Francis, and giving him an opportunity to take leadership on this important subject. And we would ask him as well, just in terms of how we treat animals at the moment. You know, what would Jesus say about factory farming and the intensive way that animals are reared? What would Jesus say about slaughterhouses? You know, we'd ask him and other Catholics and Christians to really think about that.
Have you had any response from the Vatican yet?
Not as yet.
It's early days.
It is early days. But just on that as well, I think our campaign, what we're launching, you can see with our adverts, you can see with our publicity, it's a very positive, it's a supportive campaign. We're not just encouraging Pope Francis, we're encouraging everyone to give vegan a go for Lent. If they didn't do it for Veganuary, this is the second time to do it. We have got a website and we've got a really comprehensive vegan starter kit that people can download, and it gives them all the help and guidance they need.